If you get 2 real hours of rest a day, that's 730 hours a year. Out of 8760, you are recovering for 8% of your life and running on empty for the other 92. No wonder the exhaustion never fully clears. Here are the four things that actually move that number, and the two popular ones that don't. Stick around, because most of what you've been told about rest is actually part of the problem. You've probably tried the obvious fixes: sleeping in on Saturday, a bubble bath, a day off you spent doing chores instead of resting, and Monday still feels the same. That's because none of those touch the actual mechanism. If you're saying yes to things you don't want to do 3 or 4 times a week, if you're checking your phone within the first 2 minutes of waking up, if your only real break in the week is one weekend day, you're too tired to enjoy. You're not lazy and you're not broken. You're running a recovery deficit that compounds the same way debt does. A little bit each day that never gets paid down until eventually your body forces the payment for you, usually at the worst possible time. I'm not going to tell you to meditate more or buy a $200 recovery gadget. Everything here is based on actual nervous system research, the same mechanisms real recovery science points to, not wellness industry marketing. If a tip doesn't have a clear reason behind it, it's not in this video. Claim 1. The number that actually matters for recovery isn't how many hours you slept last night. It's how consistent your sleep and wake time are, night after night. Here's the example. If your wake up time swings by more than an hour between weekdays and weekends, your body experiences something close to what researchers call social jet lag. The same kind of disruption as crossing a time zone, except you never left your bed and you do it to yourself every single weekend. That mismatch is a bigger driver of daytime exhaustion for a lot of people than total sleep hours ever are. Think about it this way. If you wake up at 7 on weekdays and 10 on Saturday, that's the equivalent of flying from New York to Denver and back every single weekend without buying a plane ticket. Your circadian rhythm doesn't know the difference between actual travel and a 3-hour weekend shift. It just registers the mismatch and spends the next few days trying to recalibrate. That recalibration cost is where a big chunk of your tired for no reason feeling is actually coming from. The takeaway: pick one wake up time, use it 7 days a week, weekends included, for 2 weeks before you judge whether it's working. Not 8 hours, not a perfect bedtime routine, just one number, repeated daily. But even a perfectly consistent sleep schedule won't fix burnout if what you're doing during your waking hours is only pretend resting, which is the second mistake almost everyone makes. Claim 2: scrolling your phone for 2 hours doesn't count as rest, even though it feels like rest. It's just low effort stimulation. Here's why that matters. Your nervous system needs a measurable drop in stimulation to actually downshift out of stress mode, and a bright screen feeding you new information every few seconds keeps your brain in the same low-grade alert state as a slow scroll through emails. People who swap 2 hours of scrolling for even 20 minutes of something genuinely calming, a walk without your phone, slow breathing, sitting outside, report feeling more recovered than people who got twice as much screen-based downtime. Try this test tonight. After 20 minutes of scrolling, actually check in with your body, jaw tight, shoulders up near your ears, breathing shallow and high in your chest. That's not a relaxed body. That's a body still on alert, just quietly, while your eyes are pointed at something entertaining. Real recovery has a physical signature: a longer exhale, a dropped jaw, shoulders that actually release. If you can't feel that shift, you weren't resting, you were just distracted. The takeaway: rest has to lower stimulation, not just lower effort. A walk counts, a nap counts, 20 minutes of silence counts. 4 hours of short form video does not, no matter how relaxed it feels in the moment. Which brings up the next problem, because for a lot of people, the reason they reach for scrolling in the first place is that they can't say no to anything else in their day. Claim 3: saying yes to things you don't want to do isn't politeness. If you're doing it 3 or more times a week, it's a chronic low-grade threat response, and it's exhausting your nervous system the same way an actual conflict would. Here's the number that makes this concrete. Most people who track it are shocked to find they say yes to something draining: an extra task, an obligation, a favor they resent before they've even agreed to it, an average of 4 to 6 times a week. Each one is small. stacked together. That's dozens of tiny threat responses firing before you've even gotten to the parts of your week that are supposed to be hard. Here's what makes this hard to catch. None of these individual yeses feel like a big deal in the moment. Covering someone's shift feels like one small favor. Answering a work message at 9 p.m. feels like just being responsive. It's only when you stack an entire week of them side by side that the pattern shows up. Dozens of tiny, sure, no problem moments, each one telling your nervous system that your own limits don't actually count. The takeaway: pick one single recurring yes to turn into a no this week. Not all of them, one. The nervous system responds to proof, not intention, and one real boundary held is worth more than 10 you only planned in your head. Once that boundary's in place, the last piece is what you do with the time and energy it frees up, because most people waste it on the biggest recovery myth of all. Claim 4. One big vacation a year does almost nothing for chronic burnout, because you go right back to the exact same triggers the day you return. And most people feel the recharge fade within about 3 days of being back. Here's the comparison that matters: 10 minutes of real recovery, done daily, adds up to over 60 hours a year, spread across the days you're actually being burnt out, instead of concentrated into one week that's over almost as fast as it started. A week off treats the symptom once. 10 minutes a day treats the cause repeatedly in the actual environment causing the problem. Picture your actual week. 10 minutes is shorter than the time you spend deciding what to watch tonight. It's shorter than your commute, shorter than a coffee break, shorter than the average scroll session you didn't mean to have. That's the entire bar. Not a retreat, not a spa day, not a week in the mountains you can't afford right now. 10 minutes on a random Tuesday, done consistently, doing more for your actual nervous system than the vacation you've been telling yourself you need. The takeaway: stop saving recovery for a trip that's months away. 10 minutes today, in the middle of the week that's burning you out, does more than a beach you won't see until summer. Which brings us back to that number from the very beginning. So back to that number from the start. 2 real hours of rest out of 24, and you're recovering for 8% of your life. Here's the good news: none of what actually moves that number requires more time than you already have. A consistent wake up time, 20 minutes that actually lowers stimulation instead of just filling it, one boundary held instead of 10 planned, 10 minutes today instead of a vacation you're saving for. Pick just one of these four and run it for 2 weeks. Not all four, one. Recovery compounds the same way burnout does, just in the other direction. If this actually reframed how you think about rest, subscribe. I'm breaking down one piece of nervous system science like this every single week, and the next video goes deeper into exactly how your body decides which of these four states to default to when it's overwhelmed.